Can't believe it's raining again. I'm doing a story time video for you about the rain. It just will not stop raining. I actually looked it up yesterday, and in my area specifically, we haven't had this much rain since like 1962. In some parts of Pennsylvania, there's never, in the history of people recording how much rain there's been, it's never rained as much as it's rained this year. It has been the wettest year in decades for most of Pennsylvania, a lot of states on the East Coast, and I'm sure all across the country too. It's causing a lot of problems, and that's really why I'm making this video. Now, normally the rain's no big deal, you know, it stops and everything dries out, but it hasn't stopped. It's rained like 40 something days out of the last 70 days, and for my area this time of year, it's, from what I read, because I didn't really know, it's common, or could be common, to rain about 25% of the time. 1 out of every 4 days. Might get a little drizzle here and there. But we've been pounded and pounded and pounded with rain. So yeah, it's caused problems, and I'm here to tell you all about them. So the first thing that happened to me is, if you guys remember an old video where in my living room in the house that I'm at right now, I had a mold issue behind the wall. And one of the reasons for it, or the major reason for it, was because the flashing was missing on the chimney. And so water, every time it rained, water would get in, it would sit behind the wall, and eventually, you know, it got moldy. I noticed that the sheetrock was bowed out. The wall was literally like curved. Now that was, you know, taken off. All the sheetrock was taken off and ripped out and gutted, and the entire thing was cleaned up, re-sheetrocked. Well, that area, not the wall so much, but around, you know, where the fireplace is, I saw a spot, a water spot. So like, that's something that has to be dealt with. I have to cut that away and make sure there's no mold behind there. It's very possible. It's dried, and I've kind of kept an eye on it, because when it first happened, it literally appeared overnight, and it was a little bit soft, but then the next day it got hard, it dried, and it hasn't gotten worse since. It's very possible there's no mold behind there, but you won't know unless you open it up. So that's a major problem that I have to check out. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. The biggest thing that's happened to me was the truck. Now, as you guys know, the truck has not been working. I have bad brakes. I have to get brake work done. The brake lines have a leak in it somewhere, maybe possibly multiple leaks. It's, I believe, the original brake lines for the truck. So it's been sitting in my driveway for probably 2+ months now, and you guys know you can't let a vehicle sit to begin with, but because it's an older vehicle, all the rubber seals, you know, around the windows and stuff are old and cracked, you know, they're stiffened, and there's parts that are missing and broken and stuff, so water gets into the truck. Now, because it's been sitting, it's been an issue. Normally, you know, I get in there, and because I use it, open the doors, I'm driving, I have the windows down, I get airflow, it kind of dries it out. It's never been an issue whatsoever. But after sitting for a while now, I got a bunch of mildew. I went to check on it, just wanted to start to see if I can get the battery kicked over. So I try to run it every now and again to, you know, get the fluids moving. And the second I opened the door, I smelled it. I'm like, oh no, something's wrong. And then I'm kind of looking, and the steering wheel was covered in mildew. The headliner had a bunch of mildew. The seat cover, I mean, it was everywhere. It was on the carpet. I should have taken a picture so you guys could have seen it, but I was like devastated. I'm like, oh my God. So I spent literally all day, this was maybe 3 or 4 days ago, I spent all day cleaning the truck. I had to throw out my seat cover, which was covering up a large hole in the driver's side part of the seat, so I have to re-tape that with some duct tape or something. Clean the steering wheel, just wiped everything down. First I wiped everything down with, you know, shop towels and stuff and rags. Then afterwards I came back and wiped everything down again with vinegar and water, you know, mix, to kind of kill off a lot of that. And then I went again a third time, everything in the entire interior of the truck, a third time with mildew remover, just to make sure. Then I'd have dry everything to make sure it wasn't going to stay moist. And then I ended up at the store and I bought a bunch of those, you know, moisture, I forget what it's called, Rid something, not Rid X, the Rid water, I don't know, something that absorbs moisture. So I got like these buckets that are good for like big rooms, and I put one inside the truck, and I'm kind of keeping an eye on it just to make sure it stays bone dry in there and there's no issues. But with the constant rain, and the other thing too is that the weather's been weird where it's warmer. Every single year it stays warmer longer. It should be pretty cold right now. I'm sitting out here in a t-shirt and I'm totally comfortable. It's probably 71 degrees. So that's making things difficult too, because all this rain, and obviously you throw in the warmth, and now you have a lot of humidity. So I have to just constantly check the truck now and make sure it doesn't come back. I had to rip out the headliner. I ripped out the actual headliner piece, but not the foam. So now I have, like, you know, the old foam that falls down. So I cleaned that up so far. I don't know if I'm gonna, I don't know what I'm gonna do, honestly, because it's such a pain and such a mess ripping that out. And then, you know, during the winter, I don't want just the metal roof, because then I might have actual leaks come in. I was thinking, I don't know if this would work, but I was wondering, you guys can probably tell me, if I clear coat that foam, will it kind of keep it together so nothing falls apart anymore? I don't know. Just a thought. Yeah, I figured it'd be easier just to spray it with some clear coat. I don't know. I gotta figure something out. I gotta fix it, first of all. But until then, I gotta make sure I keep it dry. It's just been horrific. So, what else? Besides that, the septics, it stinks, it smells. Everyone's septics, the whole area are just saturated. So the smell of crap is in the air, and it is not pleasant. That's a constant problem when it just rains too much. There's too much water going on. It stinks, it literally stinks. The situation stinks, but it quite literally stinks as well. Now the other thing that I'm still dealing with right now is inside my house, my humidity is like 85%, which is way too much. A comfortable humidity level inside your home is supposed to be between 40 and 50%. More 40 in the colder, you know, winter months, and about 50 in the summer. That's for optimal, like, health and comfort, you know, basically. And mine's not. Mine's way high. I'm probably going to end up just getting a dehumidifier. I should have a while ago, because I didn't know any of this stuff was going on until, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks ago. I started seeing, you know, some problems, which I have another problem I'm going to tell you in a minute. But yeah, I just didn't really notice that all this rain has just made everything just super wet, super humid all the time. The extra heat, the extra moisture, it's a problem. So anyway, my cigar humidors have been high. Now, they're not dangerously high. They're not past 80, but it was like 78 at the most, and I'm like, I had to go in and check everything, make sure nothing was, you know, starting to get any kind of mold or anything, because you get a little bit of mold in your humidor, forget it. Within like an hour or two, I mean, sometimes maybe even a shorter period of time, it just spreads like crazy, and it's garbage. All those cigars, you can't clean them, you can't fix it, you gotta completely get rid of the whole thing. And I have a lot of nice cigars in there. That would be a shame. That would be devastating to lose all my stuff. But yeah, it was at 78%, and I left the door open for like an hour to try to like air it out, and I realized, okay, well, it's even higher in the room. So then I put a little fan on there, and I was trying to circulate the air. Oh my God, what a mess. Then I was trying to figure out how to, you know, absorb more of that moisture, because every time I shut the door, even if I left it, you know, for a couple hours, it just wouldn't drop. It would stay consistent at like 76 to 78, and that's just too high. I could do 72. You know, that's on the high end of where I want to be. I prefer my cigars at about 70. I don't like them too dry, but I definitely want them to stay lit. If they're at 74, 75, 76, they're too moist. And the actual tobacco is just too moist to stay lit when you're, first of all, it's hard to light, but then, you know, as you're smoking it, that's why there's that range. It's like 68 to 72 is ideal, where it's dry enough to smoke, but not too dry where it's going to crack and be brittle and fall apart and get really hot when you're smoking and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm still fighting that. I ended up I scrambled up like those little gel packs, the silicone gel packs that absorb moisture when you get like flashlights and knives and stuff. So I put a bunch of those scattered around in there. That didn't do anything. Right now I had some extra humidifying beads. Now those beads are set to 70% humidity. So what that means is that if it's below 70 and, you know, you moisten the beads, it's supposed to give off that extra humidity to bring it up to 70. And if it goes over 70, it's supposed to absorb any extra. I just put like probably a fistful of it in a dish open to try to absorb more of it, and it's helped a little bit, but it's still, right now it's sitting at like 74%, so it's like, it's really kind of in the danger zone. I'm trying to really keep an eye on it, but it, like I said, it would be horrible if I lost all those cigars to mold. Now, by the way, if you do have humidors and you're into cigars and stuff, never go by the brass one that humidors come with, that hygrometer. It looks really pretty. It's really nice. It's very decorative, but they're so inaccurate. Like, I read this a long time ago, and I watched a couple people talk about this. If you're going to really get in cigars and you're going to actually buy a humidor, you should buy a digital hygrometer. That's going to tell you, most times they tell you the temperature, but more importantly, a hygrometer tells you the humidity level. They are accurate, and they're pretty cheap too. You can get them for like 15 bucks. But the ones that come with it, garbage. I would never rely on it. They look nice, but like right now, the hygrometer, the brass one that came with the humidor, says it's like 84% humidity in there. And the digital one, which I trust, which is accurate, says it's like 74, 75. So still too high, but at least I know what it is. And that's how I know what it was in my house, because when I pulled it out, I left it on the table for like 20 minutes. I looked at it, and I'm like, oh my God, it's way too humid in here. So yeah, I mean, you know, watching the video or listening to it, you're probably thinking, well, why don't you just get a dehumidifier? Yeah, duh, I should have. I didn't have one before. I've been in this particular home for like maybe 6 or 7 years now, and I've never had any kind of moisture issues or humidity issues whatsoever. This year is just horrible, absolutely horrible with all this extra rain. Yeah, another problem I've had, and this is where I first noticed that I was having humidity problems, is, I don't know if you guys seen it, I've done a couple random house tour videos in the past, but I have a very large clock. It's probably 3 feet in diameter, that's on my living room wall. And I got that clock many, many years ago. Actually, I think I got it when I first moved here. I just like the, you know, larger clock. It looks nice and it functions great. It works good. It's a nice clock. But I was looking at it, and it looked like there was some fuzzy stuff on the face. Now, at first, it has kind of an antique look, you know, or finish to the face of the clock. So I kind of thought it was that, but then I noticed it's not evenly displaced. It was like in one section, like more towards the top. And so I'm kind of like, what's going on here? So I you know, climbed up on the hearth, you know, the fireplace, the bottom part, to get a better look at it. And I noticed the same thing, it's mildew. But it was inside the clock on the face. I'm like, oh man, this is an expensive clock. I can't just go out and just buy another one. I think originally it was like maybe $100, $80, $90, something like that. But I didn't want to replace it. So I ended up taking the whole thing apart with Christina, and we found even more mildew inside. Took us probably 2, maybe 3 hours to completely clean it and hit it. We hit it with tea tree oil, you know, some kind of mixture that she did. Tea tree oil or essential oil is very good for mold and stuff like that. It kills that off. It stinks. It's not the worst smell in the world, but it definitely stinks. So she did some good cleaning solution. Took the thing apart. There's like 5 or 6 layers of stuff in this clock. It's crazy. The movement's cheap. It's not like it's an expensive clock, but it has a cheap movement. You know, it's still battery operated, but it's like just a real, you know, cheap Chinese kind of. It could be in any clock basically, but the clock itself, the construction was very nice. Long story short, after that whole ordeal, I'm very much keeping an eye on the clock, but wiping everything down. And by the way, when I put it in the back, luckily for me, maybe because it's higher end, instead of those like those pressed cardboard type backings, usually those are like stapled in because you're not going to take a clock apart ever. This one had screws. It had tiny little screws, but it probably had 20 screws on the first layer, and I took that off. Then there's like the movement layer, and that had like 15 screws, and they're all different types of screws, so I had to like separate them and keep. Oh my god, it took forever. Very tedious work. And when I was putting it back together, I had the clock face upside down. So I literally had the whole thing put back together. Went to go hang it up. As I lifted it, I'm looking at it because there's some words in the middle, and you know, it's literally upside down. 12 o'clock is upside down on the bottom. I'm like, oh my god. So I take all those screws back out and fix it and put it back together again. It's just a hassle to say the least. The wall, is wet. I have to check that out. My truck got screwed over. I got to maintain that and make sure that stays nice and dry until I can clean it. And then I still have to always make sure it's going to be dry, but at least when I'm using it, it's a little bit different. Just sitting there, it's a little hot box, you know. What else? The septic stinking, the clock, it's too much. It's too much, man. I can't, and like today, I had plans to do stuff outside all day today. It's fall time, there's leaves everywhere. I was going to start doing some yard work. Forget it, there's no way, it's going to rain all day. You know, knock on wood, it's been pretty good with, you know, in my area with power not going out. It's been kind of flickering here and there during these little storms, but we haven't really had a power outage that mattered much. And that's really my only concern. As far as like natural disasters, in my area, we don't have hurricanes, we don't have earthquakes, we don't have monsoons. The only thing we really have to worry about is when we have ice storms, because the trees get very heavy, branches break, trees topple over, and they hit the power lines, so then we lose power. And the other thing is when we get all this rain, same deal. A lot of trees are falling because when the ground is saturated like that for so long, weaker trees or trees that are like half dead and stuff, they just loosen up, or maybe they're growing on an angle and there's all that weight. And the only thing holding it is those roots and that ground, that hard dirt and rock. And when everything softens up on the ground, it just falls. There's no foundation for that tree anymore in that root system. So yeah, when it rains like this all the time, the trees just topple over. They're top heavy and they just fall over because the ground is mush. And power outages are pretty much the only issue in my exact area. Now, even close by to me, places are flooding that have never flooded, ever. You know, ever. You don't have to worry about floods, and then all of a sudden, you got a year where, like, you know, the stores are flooded out, people's homes, basements are flooded out, ruins. It's a lot of devastation. What looks to be a very innocent rainstorm by itself is no big deal. It is. It's an innocent rainstorm. The plants, nature, everything needs the rain. It has to happen, right? But when it doesn't stop, it throws off the balance. You know, I have a very weird feeling that this winter is either going to be the worst winter we've ever had, ever, or it's going to be nothing. I feel like it's going to be extreme. It's going to be the easiest winter with like no snow, or it's going to be just 50 feet of snow. Because, I mean, think about it. If it obviously got cold, all this rain would have been snow and ice and sleet and slush. And obviously that causes a lot of problems. So I'm very concerned about this winter in northeastern Pennsylvania. I mean, most of the East Coast to begin with, but, oh man, it's just, I'm sick of it. I'm tired of the rain. I love a rainstorm, you guys know that. I love when it rains. But I think I only loved it because it didn't rain that much. Anyway, the rain has just been horrific. I literally, in my entire life, I've never witnessed this much rain. Now, of course, you know, you may live in a place where it rains all the time, you know, like Washington State or something similar where this is the norm. But for me, this is not normal. Imagine if you did live in one of those places and then you got a half an inch of rain during 1 year. It would be very, very strange, and it does throw off everything. It throws off nature, it throws off society. Everything you need to do comes to a halt when there's poor weather. So, nothing I can do about it except for sit back and talk about it on a video. But yeah, I mean, I guess the planet goes through cycles, and maybe this is the time where things are changing dramatically. I've noticed that every single year, you know, snow holds off just a little bit further, I feel like, you know, 10 years from now, you're going to be wearing shorts and a t-shirt on Christmas, and it won't snow anymore on Christmas. You know, maybe the snow will start, I don't know, June, July. Maybe it'll be snowing for 4th of July, you know, for my kids or grandkids. It's just strange, you know, you get used to something, you have a whole lifetime of expecting something, and then it changes, and it's very weird. That's all. It's just something, it's just very noticeable. It just seems like every day it's raining, no matter what. And the days it's not raining, everything's still wet, so it felt like it just rains. Anyway, just wanted to, I guess, rant. I'm just complaining about the weather. The thing about the weather is you can't change it. It's going to be whatever it is, right? So all you can do is sit around and complain about it or prepare for it. But yeah, today is another lost day. I want to do some outside stuff today. I want to do a little bit of knife testing. I wanted to do some yard work. I wanted to go to the store, run some errands, but it's just too bad. And this is the light version of the rain, what you hear. But it was pouring before. The winds were crazy. You see all the trees like swaying, so I don't want to be driving around in that kind of weather. Anyway, thanks for watching. Let me know where you guys live. Are you used to rain? Specifically, if you're in my area or on the East Coast of the United States, have you noticed all the extra rain lately? Has it caused any problems personally for you? For me, it has. There's been a lot of problems, so I might end up at the store soon buying a dehumidifier. It's necessary at this point, and you know, maybe next year and the year after it'll be just the same or worse. So all you can do is prepare. Like I said, you're not going to change what happens with the weather, but you can certainly prepare better for it. They say there's no such thing as bad weather, just unprepared people, and that's probably true. So thanks for watching. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. I'm gonna have a wet one. I might do a cigar review. It's kind of relaxing out here in the rain. We'll see. Anyway, I'll see you guys soon. Take care.